All right, so you guys really want to get inside the mind of David Goggins, huh? You sent in this interview he did with Chris Williamson,
Yeah.
who, for anyone who doesn't know, is a fitness and mindset coach. I think kind of has a pretty big following online.
Hmm.
And we're going to take a deep dive into Goggins's kind of unique philosophy on mental toughness and see what makes this guy tick and see if there's some practical takeaways for you.
Yeah, I think what's so interesting about this interview is that we see a side of Goggins beyond just those like viral clips you see of him,
Mhm.
shouting, "Stay hard."
Right.
This is much more laid back. And you kind of see him open up a bit about his methods in a way that's, I think, a bit more nuanced and thoughtful.
I have to admit, I've always been a little bit skeptical of that whole stay hard thing. It seems a bit intense even for me,
Yeah,
but maybe there's more to it than meets the eye.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I think Goggins is not just about brute force.
Right.
He really emphasizes self-discovery and thoughtfulness and pushing your own unique limits. And he even talks about this concept of capping success.
Okay.
So like actively choosing to avoid getting complacent even when you achieve something big.
So instead of basking in the glory, he's already looking for the next challenge,
Exactly.
like turning down millions of dollars to fight wildfires for a fraction of the pay.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
It might sound crazy to us, but for Goggins, it's about continuous growth.
Yeah.
He sees comfort and complacency as the enemy of progress. And he even says, everyone should take everything I say with a grain of salt. You shouldn't just copy me.
Right.
You need to find your own path to growth.
Okay, so how does he go about finding that path? I mean, fighting wildfires is a pretty extreme way to avoid getting soft.
Yeah, well, he uses these extreme challenges like wildfire fighting as a way to test his mental limits.
Right.
He sees them as a sort of mental laboratory where he can experiment with different techniques for pushing past his perceived limitations.
Okay.
And that leads us to a story that really exemplifies this, the Moab 240.
The Moab 240, I've heard about this race.
Oh, yeah.
It's 240 miles through the desert.
Through the desert.
That sounds brutal.
It's insane.
What possessed him to even attempt that?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. He talks about signing up for the race on a whim
What?
with very little preparation.
Wow.
But what's fascinating is how he uses that experience to illustrate this concept of the 1-second decision.
Okay.
He was in immense pain, lost even bedridden for a while, but he still managed to finish unofficially.
Wow.
He describes these moments of extreme suffering where you have a choice, give in or find a way to take just one more step.
I can't even imagine trying to push through that kind of pain. What did he say about how he actually did it? Did he just grit his teeth and power through?
It's more than just willpower. He talks about using mental strategies to manage the pain.
Okay.
For example, when he was freezing cold, he literally talked himself into staying warm by picturing being back at the base camp,
Wow.
even though his body was telling him to give up.
That's incredible. So he's almost tricking his mind into overriding the physical signals. But why even bother going back and finishing the race officially after already pushing himself to the limit?
Yeah, it's about more than just completing the race.
Right.
He's proving something to himself about his mental fortitude.
Okay.
It's this relentless pursuit of self-mastery that seems to drive him.
Right.
And that brings us to another, perhaps even more controversial aspect of his training,
Okay.
using hate comments as fuel.
Okay, this is where I get a little lost. I mean,
Yeah.
wouldn't listening to hate comments just drag you down? Why would he intentionally subject himself to that?
It's a fascinating psychological strategy. Instead of letting the negativity get to him, he uses it to stoke his fire.
Okay.
He even talks about creating mixtapes
Mhm.
of hate comments and listening to them during his workouts.
So he's weaponizing the negativity,
Yeah,
turning it into a source of motivation.
exactly.
Yeah.
It might seem counterintuitive, but he believes that by confronting that negativity head on, he's strengthening his mental armor. He's essentially saying, you want to try to break me? I'm going to use your hate to make myself even stronger. It's a powerful example of his unwavering self-belief.
So he's not just passively enduring the hate, he's actively transforming it into something that serves him. But does that mean he's always motivated? Does he never just want to stay in bed and hit the snooze button?
He actually addresses that directly in the interview. He's very clear that motivation isn't constant. Even he has days where he doesn't feel like training.
Right.
But that's where discipline comes in.
So how does he stay disciplined even when motivation is lacking?
He talked about this great analogy of a cluttered garage. If your mind is full of chaos and clutter, you won't have the mental space for discipline to take root.
Okay.
He emphasizes the importance of mental clarity and organization as a foundation for building discipline.
So before you even try to tackle those big goals, you need to declutter your mind. Make sure you've got a clean slate to work with.
Exactly. He describes his daily routine of running, working out, stretching, and meditating as a way to armor plate his mind, preparing it for whatever the day throws at him.
So he's not just waiting for motivation to strike, he's actively creating the conditions for success. But where does all this intensity come from? Was he always this driven?
That's where the interview takes a more personal turn. Goggins opens up about his incredibly difficult childhood abuse, poverty, and a lot of trauma. It's clear that these experiences shaped his worldview and his relentless pursuit of self-mastery.
So his drive isn't just some random desire to be tough. It's rooted in overcoming incredible adversity.
He even describes himself as a circuit breaker for this generational trauma.
Right.
He's determined to break free from that cycle of negativity and show others that it's possible to overcome their past and build a different future.
That's really powerful. So he's not just trying to push his own limits. He's on a mission to help others develop the mental toughness to face their own challenges.
Absolutely. And that's what makes his story so compelling.
Yeah.
He's not just preaching about mental toughness. He's living proof that it's possible to overcome incredible obstacles and achieve extraordinary things.
It sounds like we're just scratching the surface here.
Yeah,
There's so much more to unpack about Goggins' philosophy and how it can be applied to our own lives.
definitely. We'll dive deeper into some of those practical takeaways after a quick break.
Sounds good.
You know, one of the things that I think really sets Goggins apart is his perspective on failure.
Okay.
He doesn't see it as a setback,
Right.
but rather as valuable feedback, almost like a stepping stone on the path to growth.
Didn't he say something like, failure is my first, second, and third attempt?
Yeah,
That's a pretty bold way of looking at it.
it is.
Most people try to avoid failure at all costs.
Exactly. But Goggins embraces it as an essential part of the process. And he tells the story about his first attempt at the Badwater 135,
Oh, yeah.
a 135-mile ultramarathon through Death Valley in the peak of summer.
I'm getting exhausted just thinking about it. What happened? Did he even finish?
He did finish, but it sounds like it was an absolute nightmare. He was pushing himself to the point of utter exhaustion, excruciating pain, dehydration, even peeing blood.
Wow.
He basically collapsed at the finish line.
I guess embracing the suck takes on a whole new meaning in that context.
Yeah.
But how can anyone see that kind of experience as anything but a failure?
Goggins is all about reframing those seemingly negative experiences.
Okay.
He talks about how that race, as brutal as it was, taught him an invaluable lesson about the power of the human mind.
Okay.
He realized that he'd been underestimating his own potential his entire life.
So it was a failure in the traditional sense, but it unlocked something within him, almost like a catalyst for his future growth.
That's a great way to put it. It's like he needed to hit that rock bottom to truly understand his own capacity for resilience.
Right.
And from that point on, he was determined to never underestimate himself again.
It's amazing how he can extract value from even the most painful experiences. But let's be honest, most of us aren't training for ultramarathons. How can we apply this mindset to our everyday lives?
Well, Goggins talks about how most people operate with these limited horizons.
Okay.
We set boundaries for ourselves based on our past experiences, our fears, or what society tells us is possible.
So we're limiting ourselves before we even start.
Exactly. And he challenges us to break free from those limitations,
Okay.
to push past those self-imposed boundaries and explore the unknown. He believes that we all have far more potential than we realize, but we have to be willing to step outside of our comfort zones and embrace the unknown.
He also has this interesting phrase, don't make dreams your master. What does he mean by that?
It's about taking ownership of your dreams and not letting them control you.
Okay.
It's easy to get caught up in the fantasy of achieving a goal,
Right.
but the real work lies in the execution.
Right.
He's saying you have to become the master of your dream by breaking it down into actionable steps and taking concrete action.
So it's not just about visualizing success, it's about translating that vision into a plan and then putting in the work.
Exactly. And that brings us back to the importance of discipline and the Roger that mentality he talks about.
I've heard him mention that before.
Yeah.
What does he mean by Roger that?
He actually talks about two types of Roger that.
Okay.
The first is just a passive acknowledgement. I heard you.
Right.
But the second type is more powerful. I heard you and I'm going to make it happen.
Okay.
It's about going above and beyond, exceeding expectations, and delivering results. It's taking ownership of your responsibilities and holding yourself accountable.
So it's not just about blindly following orders, it's about taking initiative and making things happen.
Exactly. And that mentality is crucial for achieving any kind of meaningful goal. You have to be willing to step up, take charge, and make things happen.
So it's about being a doer, not just a dreamer.
Mm-hmm.
But even with a plan and a Roger that attitude, there are still going to be times when it's hard to stay motivated. How does Goggins deal with those moments of doubt and resistance?
He's all about confronting discomfort head on and using it as a catalyst for growth. He believes that by pushing through pain and adversity, we build resilience,
Hmm.
mental toughness, and a deeper understanding of ourselves.
He even seems to seek out those uncomfortable experiences, whether it's running ultramarathons, fighting wildfires, or confronting his own personal demons. It's like he's intentionally putting himself through the ringer.
It's not about masochism.
Right.
It's about intentionally challenging himself to see what he's truly capable of. He encourages others to do the same, to find their own mental labs and push themselves beyond their perceived limitations.
Yeah.
He believes that those experiences, as difficult as they may be, are what forge true strength and resilience.
He's not just about pushing physical limits. It's about exploring the depths of the human spirit and discovering that untapped potential that lies within each of us. But it's not just about pushing ourselves to the limit, right? There has to be some sense of purpose behind it all. What does Goggins say about finding purpose?
He actually believes that we often overcomplicate the idea of purpose. We think we need some grand mission or external validation to drive us.
We're waiting for that aha moment to reveal our true calling.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But Goggins argues that the true purpose in life is you. It's about bettering yourself and becoming the best version of who you are.
So he sees self-improvement as the ultimate mission.
And it's a mission that never ends. There's always room for growth, always something new to learn, always a way to push ourselves further.
Right.
He sees life as a constant journey of self-discovery and self-mastery.
And he's not afraid to get personal about his own journey. He talks openly about his struggles with self-doubt, his experiences with therapy, and even his unconventional approach to dealing with online hate, like listening to those mixtapes of hate comments while he trains.
Yeah, it's another example of how he flips the script and uses adversity to his advantage.
Right.
He's not letting those negative voices control him. He's using them to empower himself.
It's a reminder that we have the power to choose how we respond to negativity. We can let it defeat us, or we can use it as fuel to propel us forward.
And it's that unwavering self-belief that allows him to persevere through challenges that would break most people. He's got this deep-seated conviction that he's capable of anything he sets his mind to, and he's constantly proving it to himself through his actions. He's a walking testament to the power of the human spirit.
So he's not just talking the talk, he's walking the walk. But what about those of us who might not be quite ready for ultramarathons or hate comment mixtapes? Where do we even begin to apply these principles?
Goggins talks about the importance of taking responsibility for our own lives and not blaming external factors for our failures or shortcomings.
He believes that we all have the power to choose our own path regardless of our circumstances.
Exactly. And he's not just talking about positive thinking. He's talking about taking concrete actions to create the life we want. He talks about how he had to confront his own past traumas and make peace with them before he could truly move forward in life.
He even went back to see his abusive father one last time to get closure and break free from that cycle of generational trauma. He calls himself a circuit breaker for that trauma. He doesn't want to pass those negative patterns on to future generations.
It's about taking ownership of your own healing and choosing to create a different future for yourself and those who come after you.
That's a really powerful message of empowerment and resilience. He's showing people that they're not defined by their past, that they have the power to choose a different path. It's inspiring, but it also sounds incredibly challenging. How does he suggest we go about building that kind of resilience?
He talks about building armor for the mind and body, preparing ourselves to face the challenges of life with strength and resilience.
Okay.
He sees this mental and physical preparation as essential for navigating the inevitable storms that life throws our way.
It sounds like he's advocating for a proactive approach to life's challenges, not just reacting to them, but preparing for them in advance.
Exactly. And he's not saying it's going to be easy, but he's saying it's possible to weather those storms and emerge stronger on the other side. He talks about the importance of having a stiff upper lip, as his grandfather used to say.
So it's about developing that inner fortitude and resilience that allows us to stand tall in the face of adversity, not letting challenges break us, but using them to make us stronger. But how do we cultivate that kind of mental toughness? Where do we even begin?
He's all about finding that inner warrior and cultivating the mental toughness to overcome any obstacle.
But what if you don't feel like a warrior? What if you feel more like, not a warrior?
He believes that we all have that warrior within us, but we have to be willing to train it, to push it, and to never give up on ourselves. And he's showing us how to do that, how to tap into that inner strength and unlock our full potential. He's not just offering motivational platitudes. He's providing practical tools and strategies that we can use to transform our lives.
So it's about taking those abstract ideas of mental toughness and translating them into concrete actions. But is it all about self-discipline and pushing ourselves to the limit? Where does compassion and connection fit into all of this?
That's a great question, and it leads us to another fascinating aspect of Goggins' philosophy.
Yeah, it seems like Goggins' whole philosophy revolves around pushing limits and, conquering weaknesses. But you mentioned compassion and connection. Where do those fit into his worldview?
Well, that's where Goggins might surprise you.
Hmm.
He actually talks quite a bit about the importance of vulnerability, especially for men. He sees it as a strength, not a weakness, and encourages others to embrace their own vulnerabilities.
That's interesting. It definitely goes against the grain of traditional masculinity, which often emphasizes stoicism and, emotional repression.
Exactly. He's challenging those outdated norms and showing that it's okay for men to express their emotions and seek support when they need it.
Okay.
He even talks about his own experiences with therapy and how it helped him process his trauma and develop a healthier relationship with himself.
So he's not just preaching self-reliance, he's acknowledging that we all need help sometimes.
He's setting an example for others, showing that it's okay to ask for help
Yeah.
and that seeking support is a sign of strength, not weakness.
Right.
And it's that vulnerability that makes his message so relatable. He's not this untouchable superhuman. He's a real person who's faced real challenges and come out stronger on the other side.
He's not afraid to show his scars, both physical and emotional.
Yeah, and it's those scars that make his message so powerful and authentic.
Right.
He's not pretending to be perfect. He's showing us that it's through our struggles that we grow and become stronger. He's a walking testament to the human capacity for resilience and transformation.
It's like he's saying, look, I've been through some really tough stuff and I'm still here, so you can too.
Exactly. And that's a message that resonates with people from all walks of life.
Right.
He's inspiring a generation to embrace their own journeys, to face their challenges head on, and to never stop striving for self-improvement.
There's one story from the interview that really stuck with me, the one about the guy who used to bully him in school reaching out to apologize years later.
Oh yeah, that's such a powerful example of the transformative power of forgiveness,
Uh-huh.
not just for the person who receives the apology, but also for the person who offers it.
Goggins could have easily ignored that message or responded with anger, but instead he chose to see it as an opportunity for growth and healing,
Yeah.
both for himself and for the bully.
It's a beautiful reminder that even the most painful experiences can lead to positive change and growth, not just for ourselves, but for others as well.
It sounds like Goggins' philosophy is more nuanced than it might appear at first glance. It's not just about pushing limits and staying hard. It's
Yeah.
about self-awareness, compassion, vulnerability, and ultimately becoming the best version of yourself.
He's challenging us to break free from the limitations we place upon ourselves, to embrace discomfort, and to never stop striving for our full potential.
So what's the one key takeaway you hope listeners will walk away with from this deep dive?
Goggins' message is a powerful call to action for anyone who's feeling stuck, lost, or unfulfilled. He's showing us that we have the power to change our lives, to overcome adversity, and to become the best versions of ourselves. It's not about becoming David Goggins. It's about discovering your own inner strength and using it to create a life that's truly meaningful to you.
He's not offering a quick fix or an easy path, but he's offering a roadmap for a life of purpose and relentless self-mastery. He's inspiring a generation to step up, take ownership of their lives, and create a world where anything is possible.
Yeah, it's a message that's worth listening to.
I think that's a great place to leave it. Well, thanks for joining me for this deep dive.
My pleasure.